Welcome, welcome, welcome to Creating Follow-Ups with Form Mule. I've been waiting for this session. I actually went to Kathryn and said, please come teach this session because I want to learn more about Form Mule. So I'm very happy to be here today. And you may say, well, who are you, woman? I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting and the Deputy Director for a nonprofit in the state of Louisiana. And you may say, you do both full-time jobs? Yes, I do. That's why I'm crazy. Okay, these are all of the different ways that you can contact me on the screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, no, you don't get a certificate, but you do get the knowledge. And right under the video in the description, you will see the link to a form. So if you fill out that form, you get the resources for today. So just keep that in mind. So what do we have coming up? We have Google Trainer. That woman looks so familiar. We have a Google Trainer session coming up next Saturday. And this was actually a requested one. They just wanted to know, like, how do I become a trainer? Or if I'm a trainer, how do I, make the most of it? So we're going to be talking to people that want to become a trainer. And if you are a trainer, but you just haven't really gotten in the game, come talk to me next Saturday. And then we have starting the year off right with parents using spaces. So if you came to our, webinar series during the summer with spaces. So this one is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be focused on parents, but the lovely Melody is swinging on back. And then we have increasing your EdTech footprint and influence. And this is from the Everyone Academy in Morocco. So I did put it in US time. The big blobs is not really part of the original flyer, but September 17th, 3 p.m. Central Time. And then we have Google and You updates for 2022. And I swear to you, last year, Joy came and did this. And I was like, well, I don't really need it, but everybody else may need it. I swear to you, I did not know all the updates. You will never know all the updates. So definitely come September 24th and check that out. And then we have October 8th, Children of Single Parents, our overlooked stakeholders. So we'll be talking to Eric about that. And then we have TCCA. I cannot wait. One of my all-time favorite conferences, one day for free. Usually about 3,000 people. Since the pandemic, I think it's gone down just a little bit, but hey, you can make that change this year, can't you? So definitely come check it out. It's one of my favorites. And then we actually have a date change. So Special Education and Beyond will not be on October 29th anymore, but it will be on September 17th. Desiree just forgot to update the flyer in this PowerPoint, but on the website, it is all correct. On Zoom is correct. So September 17th, SPED Education, SPED and Beyond. And then we have Organizing Your Professional Projects. So this is another one that was requested. So I was like, yeah, why not? So I'm excited to show this one and teach this one. It's all about just organizing all those different projects that you may have coming up. And then we have 3 tools with endless possibilities. What 3 tools? I don't know, but 3 tools with endless possibilities from the lovely Rochelle. And then we have her coming back again with AI in education. So 2 different webinars. And then, of course, TCEA is next year, but hey, they released it, so I'll put it on here. So I have 4 sessions so far with TCCA. It always changes by the time the conference comes, but registration opens in September. And then, of course, we always have our self-paced and online courses like Google certification and test prep for educational leadership and all of that good stuff. Right? So much great stuff coming up, and stuff is still being planned. Like I have 2 emails right now that I'm waiting on the information to set up the flyers for new webinars. So it's still coming up. It's still being planned. And remember to let us know what you want to learn in 2023, because that's what we're starting to plan now for the spring. So let us, or the half winter, spring, whatever you call next semester. So let us know what you want to learn and what you want to teach. Whoop, whoop. All right, y'all, you didn't come here to hear me, even though I know it's a treat, right? Because I'm awesome, I know. But you didn't come here to hear me, and I didn't come here to hear me. I came here to learn from Kathryn about Form Mule.
Oh, thank you, Desiree. Good morning. And I cannot thank you enough for allowing me to share this fantastic topic. So hello and happy Saturday if you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay, happy whatever day you're having. Thank you. It is such an honor to be here and join the EA family. So I am so happy to become part of this community of learners. So I am Kathryn Laster, and I am celebrating year 33 in education. And I was a math teacher for 25 years. So shout out to any math teachers in the group, and an instructional coach. And then now I work at an education service center in the Dallas area, and I serve the teachers and educators and administrators in the North Texas area. And shout out to my Region 10 friends who are in the audience as well. Thank you all for being here. But my main role is, how can I empower learners to use technology in meaningful ways? And so this tool that I'm sharing today is one of those powerful tools for learning. And so I am just delighted to be able to share that information with you. So before we get started, though, let's see who's here. We've seen a lot of the intros, and we know we're from all over the country, but how are you doing today? So if you're here live, I would love for you to share a number in the chat. If you're watching virtually later, then just do a little self-reflection. So if you're watching live, it is Saturday morning. So are you just grabbing that cup of coffee or tea and holding on for dear life? 2, are you kind of in the nap mode, sleeping in a little bit? You're in your comfy clothes. 3, does your Saturday look like the Harry Potter letters from everywhere? 4, maybe you're in the mood for learning, but it's a very relaxed learning, so you're on the couch. 5, you are Mary Jackson, you are ready to learn. And then maybe you come to all of Desiree's webinars, and so you're getting a happy reunion. So let's see in the chat where everyone is doing. So we've got a lot of the 5s ready to learn. Hooray, 6s. Some 4s like the vibe. You're on the couch, but still learning. So glad you're comfortable. We do have a grabbing onto coffee for dear life as well. So we've got all kinds of vibes here in the audience. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm excited to share ideas about how I've used Form Mule to personalize and differentiate and follow up and provide some feedback. Now, I know those words sound like a PD bingo board, but I promise I have created workflows that do exactly that. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, I really became obsessed with planning professional learning. And so that's the lens I'm starting with today. But as you filled out the form, I noticed we have all kinds of roles around in our live webinar. So I'm sure we can find some answers for you how to use this tool. But the big problem that I was originally trying to solve was this. So how do I follow up and extend the learning after a PD session? And my teammate and friend, Nancy Watson, asked the magic question, how can we automate any of these processes? And that's where the magic of Form Mule came into play. Yes, Nancy is awesome. So today's purpose, what we're really focusing on is experiencing Form Mule. And I hope you've received that email already, but you've already experienced Form Mule once, but we'll spend time exploring that. And then also really applying Form Mule to whatever role you have. This tool is a little bit persnickety. And so I want us to go through the setup, and I want to point out some of the places that have caused me problems and correct my mistakes. But it does take a little bit of thinking and figuring out what situations work best. And so we're going to start focusing on that, thinking about it first, giving you some time to process first, and then we'll go back to the actually digging in. All right, so I ground my work mostly in the ISTE standards for educators. And one of the standards that really is applicable today is that the designer standard, where we design the authentic learner-driven activities that accommodate for learner variability. And when we are talking about, when I use those buzzwords, differentiate and personalize, that's where we get some learner variability. And then since I really am leaning into design of professional learning, also this standard from Learning Forward, the implementation standard, is this: how do we sustain professional learning? And again, thinking about how do we extend the learning beyond the synchronous time or beyond the seat time? How do we make that stick? So those are the two standards where I am leaning in today. All right, so for today's vibe, first of all, we are among friends. I know that so many of you know Dr. Desiree, and you probably sign up for anything she does immediately. And so if you are responding in the chat and you see something that you know the answer to, please respond. Please help another person. And also, feedback is fantastic. Using the chat, asking questions, again, responding to your friends here. And I asked you on the form, and we'll look at that in a second, feel free, if you're in the mood to, you're Mary Jackson, Hidden Figures, and you are ready to learn, you can play along. Or if you're just in the mood to hide and watch, that's fine. And then you can watch the replay later. All right, so I just want to make sure that you are able to get those resources. We've been sharing it since the waiting room time. And then I also wanted to give you an opportunity, if you haven't already done so, to install Form Mule. And then once you get that email, it will give you a document, and this is a Google Doc. So when you select use template, it will make a private copy for you. And you have places here to take notes and add your own thinking. But then here's the link where you can install. And then I have a practice sample sheet. So when you select that use template, then you'll get this practice doc. Now, side note, as we're making sure we've got that form, I have started, I got this idea from a colleague, Dee Dee, calling this a thought catcher, where you can take notes and access the resources. But I have started using zero margins on the left and the right, because this isn't going to be printed. This is just for us to use as a resource doc. And so using zero margins gives me a little bit more space horizontally. So there's a free little tip for you. All right. So I want you to look at the email that you received, hopefully from me. And I invite you to put in the chat, what did you see, notice, and wonder about those responses? And then also, I'm going to take a second and look at the Form Mule responses or the form responses and see what kind of instructional decisions I need to make. So what did you notice about the email that you received, or what are you wondering about when you got that email back from me? What did you see, notice, and wonder? And like I said, I invite you to put that in the chat. And I'm going to glance here. And an important question for me is your comfort level with forms and sheets. And that instructional decision I'm making is I'm glad we don't have any of the loathe. And since we've got mostly comfortable people with our people that are comfortable with forms and sheets, I can maybe go a little more quickly when we are talking about the forms. With the sheets, I may spend a little bit extra time there. All right, so we've got let's see, 40% have used some extensions, so that is good to know. All right, we've got some that are brand new to the idea of these extensions. Okay, and 40% are just going to watch the demos. Some will have the tabs open, some are still waiting. All right, and then let me look back at the roles. Okay, so we've got teachers, specialists, wanting to use this maybe for discipline referrals. Okay. Thank you, Stormy and Eric, for responding. Easy to read, complete the task. Personalized, Sherry, thank you for noticing that. The formatting in the email was intentional, and so I'm glad those are the things that you noticed as well. Now, did you scroll to the very bottom and notice how I set up this Form Mule? This is how I differentiated based on the question, have you used an add-on before? And so this was the magic question that determined what your email looked like when you answered you were brand new to extensions. I gave you a couple of gifts to show you how to install that. If you've already used Form Mule before, I invited you to share your ideas during this webinar. So that was the question that determined which of the 4 emails that you got. And we'll talk more about that in just a bit. All right, thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that the steps were easy and that the layout, you enjoyed the layout. All right, so today's journey, we've done a little bit of setting the stage. I have a little bit more to share about the journey. And then I want to share examples that I've actually used with Form Mule to give you some thinking time and figure out what this might look like for your role specifically. Then we're going to get into Form Mule and explore all the menus, kind of walk through the troubleshooting pieces. This tool, I shared some of this with my mom this week, and this tool, the first thing she said, well, it's called Form Mule, but why are you talking about sheets? So we're doing this a little bit backwards. It is an extension for sheets, but we know that sheets are connected to forms. And so we're going to start with the sheet part, and then we'll get to the form. So even though it's called Form Mule, remember this is all about the sheets. So then we'll do our continuing experiencing and exploring and then applying it for your specific role. And then finally do a little bit of debriefing, troubleshooting, recommending, and then the next steps. All right, so a little bit just to make sure. Now, most of you said that you were familiar with the extensions, and Google just recently changed the name. We have Chrome extensions, and it used to be called Google add-ons, but the name has just recently changed, so it's a little bit confusing. The Chrome extensions are in your toolbar, and they add a little bit of functionality to your browsing experience. So all of those are Chrome extensions. Google Workspace extensions, and again, that name just happened in the last couple of months. The extensions allow you to write scripts and programs, and Form Mule I have called an add-on for so long, so I will probably use the word incorrectly, but this is the menu that you'll look for. So extensions, but it has this submenu of add-ons. So I'm a little confused myself about this distinction. But the thing I wanted to tell you is that there are, or remind you about, is that there are extensions that are specific to a Google tool. So there are extensions for forms, for sheets, for docs, for slides. And again, like I said, even though this is called Form Mule, it's an extension for sheets. So the big one to compare this to, and Dr. Desiree has talked about Autocrat, I know many times, is that Autocrat is a mail merge tool, but it has some kind of output like a document or a certificate. And so Autocrat is very commonly used for a webinar like this, where you get a certificate at the end. People fill out the form, that information goes to a sheet, and then you get an attached certificate. Contrast that with Form Mule. So Form Mule does not have a separate document attached to it. It is just an email that you get. But the exciting part is that you can have up to 10 different templates. And so you can really personalize, and this is where you can differentiate and based on something that is either in the sheet or in the form. So those are my favorite add-ons or extensions, and you can actually use Form Mule with Autocrat and vice versa. But does anyone else have a favorite add-on for sheets or another tool? If you have a favorite add-on that we need to look at, please add that to the chat. And like I said, I noticed on your response form that there are more people that are familiar with forms than sheets. So these Autocrat may just be your favorites as well. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit of brainstorming time. And I'm going to go through a list of ways that I've used Form Mule, and I will invite you to either add in the chat, this sounds great, or I love that, or this sounds like something I could use. Or if you want, I have a place in the document for Form Mule inspirations. And so feel free to jot down ideas as you hear them. Again, my ideas are mostly from a professional developer's lens. And so think about how you can innovate and tweak my ideas. And then if you have already used Form Mule, please add that to the chat so that we can be inspired by your ideas. All right, so I'm going to go through a bunch, listen, and jot down what resonates with you or what workflow you'd like to create. So the first one is a simple mail merge where you just personalize an email, and it doesn't have a form attached. You may just have a bunch of information in a sheet, and adding a little personal piece, I think, is so appealing. When I get newsletters, I am always just a little bit happier when it says, "Hey, Kathryn, how are you doing?" Or, you know, they embed your name in the newsletter. So I think especially in the last couple of years, any extra bit of personalization is important. And I did this week. I had a survey I wanted to ask. I had email addresses and names. And so I just did it using Form Mule so I could be a little bit more personal. Now, if we do the same kind of thing with one email template, people fill out a form, it goes to a sheet, and then they get a nice personal email. So the email says, hello, and here's what you do next. So shout out, this is exactly why I'm here from EdChange Global, our event. When I set this up for our registration, Desiree was like, Kathryn, how do you do that? And so that's what led to me being here. So hello, Stormy and Eric and Desiree for our EdChange Global registration email. The other idea is, and this is what I do all of the time, is I have at the end of my professional learning session, someone fills out an attendance sheet, and then they get a personal email back that says, thank you for coming. Here are the slides from today. Here are the resources. Here's my next session. So that is something that I use all the time. All right, so now let's get a little bit more exciting with a lot of different templates. And here's where you can do a little bit more with the differentiation or personalization. So this is exactly what I did for your email today, and I had 4 different templates. You filled out my welcome form, the answers went to a sheet, they were Form Muled, and you received a response based on your familiarity with Form Mule or with add-ons, and all the top part and the bottom part of the email was exactly the same. The different templates came from just a middle section where, how did you feel about extensions or add-ons? Desiree, I was thinking about this actually for you. Is I saw one of your webinars a few weeks ago where you had participants fill out a form, and what do they want to learn about? Was it Sheets or Gmail or Drive? And so they could have received a follow-up email that said, since you're interested in Sheets, here's my playlist about Sheets, or since you're interested in slides or whatever, you can get information about slides. So I was thinking about that. So put that in your ear. The very first time I used this at Region 10, so shout out to my Region 10 friends that are here, was with conference planning. And this was a vendor fair that we were creating. And so our billing person, a vendor would fill out a form that said, yes, they want to participate. And then our billing person, Christine, received just that billing information. And then the person in charge of the conference received the basic vendor information. And then I was working on the website, so I just received like their logo and their link for their website information. So this required 3 different templates, and it was so nice because we didn't have to wade through the spreadsheet. We didn't have to get an email and look for our pieces. They were emailed automatically, just the information that we needed to know. Here is another idea for a little bit of differentiation, and this could work for professional learning, or it could, I'm really thinking about classrooms, is if someone fills out a form and in a classroom they get a question wrong, then they could get an email or a video or a follow-up about this particular topic or topic B or topic C. And I helped a colleague fill this out for one of her sessions last year. She had 3 big ideas in her session, and this was her opportunity to extend the learning. I'm really interested in learning about this topic A, and so they got a little extra resource that she had curated. All right, there are some people who are coaches here on the call, and so I thought that a coaching follow-up might also work. If you fill out a form for your coaching meeting, then there may be specific pieces that you just want to remind the coachee. You may need to send details to an administrator, but it doesn't contain all the information. And then you may want some documentation for yourself. And so when you are doing something like that, you really need to think about the privacy issues. So I know someone mentioned discipline referrals, and there are some ways that you can do this to protect the student's information. But I think that this is another opportunity to have those differentiated kind of responses. Okay. Oh, yes, Kate, thanks for that idea for open house back to school. That sounds fantastic. Okay, yay, Sam, I'm glad I got your attention with the conferences. Yep. All right, and then this is really what inspired a giant Form Mule excitement with our team, is thinking about how we can promote and remind participants of our sessions after the fact. And so my colleague Nancy found this article that's linked in your document, Enable Your Brain to Remember Almost Anything with the 2, 2, and 2 method. So what we did is people fill out their attendance form, and then they received an email 2 days after the sessions, like, thank you for being here. Here are the slides. And then 2 weeks after the session, and then 2 months after the session. And this was so important this summer. If we did a session in June, then we could say, participants, don't think about us again until school starts. And then it automatically sent them an email in August. And it's like, hey, it's Kathryn, remember me? We talked about blah, blah, blah. So this has been a real lifesaver for just getting a little bit of follow-up. And then one other kind of crazy workflow was to do some feedback loops. This one was inspired by a dear friend of mine who was the executive assistant. And so she was trying to manage subplans, and people would have to fill out a form. This was pre-pandemic. If they wanted a personal day on a Friday or a Monday. And so they would fill out the form. She would get the information, could send it to the principal, and then information would go back to the spreadsheet and the teacher would get a response. So I took that idea and ran with it. And I've had some sessions and webinars where the participants could get an extra hour of credit for implementing an idea. And so we created these feedback loops. They fill out something, I received an email, they got credit, and so then they got a certificate in another email. Okay, whew, that was a lot. So I just want to give you a minute to process and think and reflect a little bit and jot down any notes in the document. Think about what might work for you, or add anything else to the chat if you're interested in something specific, or if you are really excited about trying one of these. I know I shared a lot, so just wanted to give you that process time. Okay, Desiree, hooray. Eric, hooray. I'm glad I got you inspired or found the need. Gail, you're open, flexibility, and just being open. That is fantastic. All right. Yay, Erica, as an instructional coach, thinking about that. All right. Okay, so I hope you're inspired. I hope you've seen the need, or you're still thinking about it. Okay, yay, Norma, the coaching follow-up. All right. So we're going to get into Form Mule now, and thinking about, again, you can follow along with me and kind of minimize and or split your screens, or however you want to work this as I go through this in real time. And I especially want to point out where Form Mule is a little bit persnickety because I have made a lot of mistakes, and I hope this will just help avoid some of those issues that I have had. And so the first thing I want to do is we'll do one pretty simple template. Then I'll show you how to add some formatting for some extra nerdiness. And then we can start with a form and then move on to the sheet. So that's my plan for this next part. Now, in your document, I have, let's see, right here, I have a new slide deck that goes through these 4 menus items, and I point out some kind of caution areas. So, you know, if you're watching the replay, you can pause, but if we're going through this live and then you don't remember this, you can select that image, and then I kind of walk through all of those menus. All right. If you never got the email, then this link is going to take you to the resource doc. If you prefer a PDF, then I have that option. But what I want you all to do is, if you haven't done so, is to get into that sample sheet. And that's what we're going to start with and practice with our data. Now, if you already have something in mind that you want to create, or you have a form that you want to add on to, that's fine, your choice. But I have this little sample document just in case you want to go from here. So here is my sample document. I select use template, and so that will make a sheet that's my own. I need to add my email address in here. Okay. All right. The first thing that I want to point out, and this is listed in my reminder section of the doc as well, is that if you are really excited about personalizing these follow-up emails, it's important that you list the questions separately as first name and last name. So that way I can say, Dear Kathryn versus Dear Kathryn Laster. So on all of my forms now, I always have first name and last name. And then plus that allows you to alphabetize by last name if you need to do that. All right. If you have Form Mule installed, you can go to extensions and select the Form Mule utility and launch. Now, let me just double check. Are y'all able to see this window in the middle? I just want to make sure I shared my screen correctly. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. So at the top, this is just one spreadsheet. We just have one tab. If you're working with something more complex, then of course you just need to pick the correct tab that you want for Mules. So sheet 1. And for the left column where it says form trigger, this is grayed out because we do not have an associated form. If you wanted, and like our practice form that I gave you, if you wanted this to automatically send when a form is submitted, then you would select that. Since we're just working at a spreadsheet, I'm going to select a time trigger. And this one is, I use this sometimes, and what I usually do is send this after a webinar or a professional learning session. So sometimes I have the check every hour, but just for today, we can select on a day timer. And this is when do you think, or approximately when do you want the email to be sent? So typically I say between 9 and 10 or 10 and 11. So you can choose whatever time and then update that time trigger. And then in the back end, you'll see a little bit of a pop-up that is going to remind you of, some things are happening in the background. So next we go, so this is menu 1. So next, templates. Let's see. Gail, not a question mark. It is a slash. So bit.ly/fm doc. That should, I hope that's correct. Maybe someone else can fix that. All right. So here, they've updated. We now have 15 possible templates. I think the most I've used is 6, but you can have now up to 15 templates. So for this simple email, we're just going to have one template. If you have a lot of email or different email templates, then I do recommend that you change the name. Since we just have one template, we can leave that as template 1. We're going to, in this case, send for all rows, but here are, you've got every column heading has a possibility. So you can, this is where a lot of the magic happens in the sheet. So when do you want this email sent? And so that's a little bit of that logic that you have to think ahead of before we get really into it. All right. Everything requires a save and next. So that was email 2, or I'm sorry, menu 2. All right. Next, we're going to build the templates. And this has all of our merge tags on that right column. And our the way you can do this is just click or select where you want those tags to go. So for the 2, we need to select email address. And you notice that every tag has the former math teacher less than and greater than signs, double brackets there. You can have a no reply. So, if you're sending after a big event and you don't want people replying to you, then that might be an option. Otherwise, the reply will be from whatever account you're working in. This is a subject required, so we'll just put follow up from today's session. Okay. So I want this personalized, and here's one thing to watch for. So I'm going to say, dear first name, and it always, except in the email, it always duplicates that title, first name, and then the brackets. So that's where you need to be careful and delete that extra information. Let's see, can you put the name in the subject line? Yes. So Desiree's question asking about what do you put in the subject line? I can put we can put the last name. I've done certificates using Form Mule as well. So I'll say blank certificate for blank session. So that can be personalized as well. And then you can find it yourself, searching through those emails. All right. So the body of the email, again, we are just going to keep this simple. So I'm going to say, thanks for attending the session. And then I have one of the columns, session attended. So I'm going to delete that and just have the caret. And then I have today's date. So I'm going to add that, today's date. And then have a great day and instructor's name. Okay. So that is the simplest sort of email possible. And it doesn't take that long to sign up. It just offers a little bit of personalization. And like I said, you do have to go through and save in this extension. So I'm going to now select save and preview. So you can see, Dear Harry, thanks for attending this session. Have a great day. And I can select my arrows on the right menu, and you can see the different names. And then since Desiree reminded us, follow up for today's session for Granger or Weasley. And then if you want to go ahead and send it to practice, if you've got your email in there, you can say save and send all. And Eric, yes, you can include the links. And so here's what the actual email will look like. It sends 3 emails. This is my just personal Gmail account, and I've been playing with this morning to make sure it was working today. So I have 100 emails that you can send per day. In the EDU form, if you have a Google for Education account, you can send up to 1,500. So, yes. Yes, Desiree, you can put the emojis in the subject line and in the body, everywhere you want emojis. So that is very helpful as well. Okay. So I am going to not send these. You can if you want to practice, but I want to do a little bit of formatting since Eric and Desiree were talking about formatting. So I'm going to go back to edit. And on my document, I have a little bit of the extra nerdiness with that formatting with the HTML code. So those of you who are pretty familiar with just any web programs, you are probably familiar with these commands. Now, if you are not into this kind of formatting, just play on your own, plug your ears. This is just for the extra nerdiness. So if I go to my email, since Desiree and Eric were asking and Sam said emojis, I was using in all of my stuff, I was using this kind of curved arrow. So I'm going to put, let's see, which one was it? This one. So follow up from today's session. And so I'll say, thanks. So here's my thanks for attending the session. And then I'm going to make this italicized. So I will use the open caret I to italicize the session attended, and then backslash I caret. So again, here is the command for italics. And so now you can see this is italicized. I very frequently forget to have the close the HTML code. And so then I end up bolding or italicizing all of this. So always preview the work. All right. So then have a great day, instructor, the name will come out. And so maybe we want to show this is from region 10. And so there's that, but I want this hyperlinked. And this code is anytime you put in a URL, a space href equals the quotes, the URL, and then the /a to close out that. Again, extra nerdiness. If you're not into that, then ignore me for right now. Equals, and this is, whoops, region10.org, close quotes, and then close out the HTML there. And so when I preview this, here's another warning. If I want to check to make sure I have created the correct URL, I'm on a Mac, so I use Command or Control if you're on a PC, Shift. So, whoops, not getting the right link there. So I did something wrong. So always check those URLs. Let's see, what did I do wrong? That's what it's supposed to send it to. So let me go back and edit. Oh, I didn't put a double quote mark. Okay, so now it sends it to the correct website. All right, so then when I preview that, now I have the emoji, and then I have my link. I have a little bit of the italics there. Okay, now here is something super exciting. And for I think it was Kate who said something about open house. If you have language learners, you can use language codes and automatically translate this. So you get 2 emails. For one, you have the English version and you have the other language version. So you can put the language code. Spanish is ES. So if I say save and preview, let's see. Look at the templates, maybe. Spinny. And that's one of the problems, Form Mule. I often get this spinny. I was practicing this morning where it had a French translation, and in the email I said, have a good day. And it wrote it in like 3 different ways, have a good day. Okay, so I'm going to close that and we'll look at the translation in a minute. Okay, how are we doing here? All right, so here is the next level of personalization. The French code, I think, is FR. Yes, thank you, Desiree. And I am on this document. Let's see. I have a list from Google Language Codes here. Okay, so here's one additional way that you can personalize this information. And I love this idea, and I was thinking about for classroom teachers. I saw a video where teachers had the students check in and they added a column. So on my spreadsheet, I'm going to add one additional column and just call it comments. And you could type in whatever you wanted here for giving some kind of feedback. So if you had, for instance, students check in and they were saying they had a terrible day, you could give them a comment. If you're talking about our professional learning session and someone said, I want to know more about blank, you could say, sign up for the next session. So I'll just put some different comments in. Let's see, like, glad you enjoyed today. Here are the resources. and check out this website. So I just added those comments in supposedly separately. Yes, see, yes. So Desiree, you can add comments later, or you can add different columns later. You can add them beforehand, put in the comments. It's lots of options. All right, so I've added some comments. And now I'm going to go back to my Form Mule. And once I've opened Form Mule, and I've stayed in that one spreadsheet, I now am able to look more quickly. I don't have to go through all of those menus. So under my setup, I want to work on those templates again. So I'm going to go to Build and Preview Templates. All right, so now notice that in my merge tag column, I have the new column heading comments. So I have this email that says, thanks for attending this session. And then I added an additional comment. So I'll use the little eyes here and then add that tag. Remember to delete the text. So now save and preview. Then you can see as I scroll through, I have different text for each of these emails. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Desiree, for this reminder. And I'll give you two big issues. When you want to check the link, if I select the link now within Form Mule, it will come up to this page, but there's no way for me to back out. And so I have to close and start over from scratch. So now I have to go back to the setup and build and look at the templates again. So my hint there is to select Command or Control and click to check the link that way. So you don't have to do the extra backing out and starting over to check those links. The other huge tip is once you start writing some of these templates, you can use pieces over and over again. But the font choice I have discovered is very picky. And sometimes when I have copied and pasted these URLs and quotes, the link breaks. And so I have learned that those quotation marks, it's easier if I am pasting from a document. And I have tried multiple fonts. I still can't get it to work. But I go through, and if I'm having trouble with the link, just go and retype those quote marks in the document. So I need to talk to the Form Mule people about that, because that is that has caused me so much trouble. And so let me show you this extra nerdiness. This is the email, since I've got my EdChange Global friends in here. This is the email from our thank you for registering for EdChange Global. Here are the next steps. I have used bold, I have headings, I have GIFs in there. And if I had made a mistake, I did not want to try to capture that from that Form Mule template. So I put this in a doc and I saved it. And so we can use it again next year. So this messy, terrible looking doc ends up like this with your headers, with the GIFs, with the bolds. And so I have left space at the top of this document for possibly putting in your, your email that you want to compose, just because it's so much nicer to copy and paste into the document instead of recreating it every time. So that is, the emails can look really nice. And like the email that you received today had the formatting, it had the GIFs, it had colors. So lots of tips there. Okay. So let's see, how are we doing on the time? Let's do one more that's a little bit more complex, and we'll start with a form. If you want to keep following along, feel free to do so, or just play at your own pace. But I'm going to start a new form. So I'm just doing forms.new. And I'll say follow up from today's webinar. And Desiree, I'm thinking about you and your example of, I'm going to say first name, if I can type. And then I know I have to collect the email address. And then in a, as I mentioned earlier, in a webinar I caught from Desiree this summer, she had a live form where people could vote what they wanted to learn about. So what I'm envisioning is that people choose their top tool that they want to learn about, and based on what they chose, they get follow-up information from Desiree. Here's my playlist. Even if we didn't get to Gmail, I've got 37 email videos about this. So I'll say, what tool do you want to learn about? And I'm going to put Gmail, Sheets, and Slides. Now, I am going to make these questions all required. First name is important because we want it personalized. Email is important because they have to get this information from an email. And then this question, what tool do you want to learn about, is going to be the Form Mule question. This is going to be what triggers this, and we're going to have 3 different templates. So let's go to our responses, open up a new spreadsheet. And if you recall in my examples, there were a ton of examples that were using this same kind of format where there were 3 or 4 possible templates. So here's how this looks. If I go to extensions, launch, form responses. Now I'm going to select that I want this sent on the form trigger. This is what I gave you all today. So when the form is submitted, then they will get the email. Now I may get an error message right here. Oh no. Okay. So for this, I want 3 distinct emails. And I said Gmail, Sheets, and Slides. Now here is another big, huge warning for you all. Learn from my mistakes. Is once you select these templates and these conditions, The titles have to match exactly, and the responses have to match exactly. So the title send condition comes from column headings. So I'm going to choose which tool do you want to learn about. And the responses, I want to send this template when the person responds Gmail, and I've capitalized these, then they are going to get my template that is based on Gmail. And then the Sheets one, again, I capitalized all of those. It is best if you simply copy and paste, so you get exact duplicates, no spacing. I would also recommend, as much as I love emojis, I would also recommend not putting emojis, making those questions as simple as possible, because again, the special characters sometimes throw off this program, and those little details make a big difference. All right, so save the settings, and let's see. And while this is spinning, I'm actually going to go and fill out the form once so I can see the results. All right. Okay, so now edit the templates. So to email address, this is going to be learn more about the tool you wanted to learn about. And so I'm going to say, hi, first name. Hi, Dr. Desiree. Then you can say, since you were interested in learning more about, what tool do you want to learn about? And then I'm going to put, I'm going to make that one bold. So I've got the HTML. Whoops, bold. Here's my playlist of Gmail tips. And then I would embed that URL there. So using that URL code. So the reason I wanted to make 3 separate templates is because if they requested information about Gmail, then I have a separate link for the Gmail playlist versus the Sheets playlist versus the Slides playlist. I could also personalize it to say, since you're interested in Sheets, here's my playlist, but also catch my webinar next Saturday about Sheets. So that is what that will look like. So because I filled this out and it said Gmail, this row, I've got that Gmail, but I haven't filled out anything else yet. So that's my only preview. Okay. One other last thing to save a little bit of time and for the nerdy users here, all of our templates are hidden sheets. And if you select view and then hidden sheets, it should show. Refresh, let me try again. And it might sometimes be easier to go in and look at those hidden sheets and edit the text in where it says body of the text. And so I have sometimes found it's so much easier to copy and paste and fix things here versus going through all of these little screens. So that's another little extra nerdiness tip that I wanted to pass on and thinking about saving some time. Okay, so let me see. Oh, let me point out again. On your document, I have, again, this is a slide deck. So if you select the image and you scroll through the slides, I've pointed out a few of the little tips and error messages that I've received and mistakes to avoid. So that might be useful. And I have some reminders listed for the forms, but then also they also apply to the sheets. And Kate, I've encountered issues every single time. So I have made every mistake possible. So Kate was asking, have you encountered any issues in the Form Mule when you're editing the hidden sheet? Some, but it's user error, like forgetting to use the quotation marks or forgetting to close off the HTML code or something like that. But I have not broken the settings like that. If you feel like you've really made that mistake, delete the sheet, delete the column, and you can start over pretty easily. So that's not too, I mean, you know, Google won't break, so you can fix it. The logic questions, and the reason I really wanted us to go through a bunch of examples before we get started, I personally find it easier if I have in my head how many templates I'm going to need, what is it going to kind of look like. That's why I like to sketch things out in a document first, because I have had some problems when I go through and I say, now I need 2 templates. Oh, wait, no, I really need 4. And I think they're adding in those templates later. That has caused me some problems. So I really think that thinking through what you want to send first is super helpful. So though that is a big consideration. I always test my emails for, like I mentioned, the URL. I have bolded entire passages before. I forget to put a quote mark and I've deleted things. So the more complex and the more HTML you have in there, the more likely you'll make a mistake. I've done that. And so just always check your work, send yourself a bunch of emails, send your family members emails to make sure that everything works. I noticed that in my column with my form, I had, I left out the 2 here, so I get the error message, so I can just delete that and send again. So once you have sent those forms, you'll get the messages in your send status. So that's important. Let's see. Desiree, the HTML code for the pictures, it is the image source code. So the let me open this up. On the images that I used, for instance, for our EdChange Global, those all came from Giphy. And so those images were hosted on the Giphy website. So that's one thing, is that your images do need to be hosted somewhere. On the form, I mean, the email that you all received today, the GIFs were hosted on my personal website. So you get that image address link. And then this when you're building the preview, this link, HTML friendly, this W3 Schools is so helpful for me. So I go through here all the time to figure out how do I do the code. So there's the image source code, and then you can include that alt text as well. So that's you know, it breaks up the email if you've got a long bit of text to put those images or colors or things like that. So that's where I have learned a lot. And I know that the HTML has been around for a long time, and that's just, I think, some code that a lot of us know now and are able to use. Okay, so I've seen some already some feedback. I'm so curious to start wrapping this up. Who is going to try it? Norma and Sam and Desiree, who's going to try Form Mule? And what are you thinking? What are your next steps for Form Mule? And then the other question I always ask is who else might benefit from learning about Form Mule? So can you share the video link with someone else or share your resource document? Is there anyone else on your team who might be interested in learning about Form Mule? And then finally, what is inspiring you today? What are your ideas? So let's take just a second to see who is going to do this. Yay, Eric, new faculty orientation. Yeah, this Desiree commented, go through and play with it. This has taken me, I've been working on Form Mule for about 7 years, and there are still so many things I don't know about it, mistakes I continue to discover. So it is definitely one of those tools that you have to play with, but I think there's so much potential to do that personalization and do this feedback. So it has been such a game changer for me. In my role, in my Region 10 Friends role, we have, and Desiree, I'm sure the summer is our busiest work time. And I always like to send follow-up emails, but it has been so nice to not think about sending follow-up emails. Everything is automated. So I do want to stay in touch with my friends who attend webinars and live sessions, but they fill out the attendance form and it's taken care of. It took a lot of time to set it up, but all summer I just kept thinking it is so worth it. It is so nice to have that done. So anyway, that has been so helpful. Yay, Kate, I am so glad to teach the basics to someone that will help you. Eric sharing it with the admin assistants, yes. And again, that's really what prompted me at the very beginning of learning it, was to help the admin assistant. So yeah, the admin, I mean, administration, you know, I'm thinking walkthrough forms, referrals, things like that. So yeah, and again, doesn't it make just a hint of a difference to have a personalized email to say, hey, Kathryn, how are you? Or, you know, just that your name in there, I think is so, I mean, it's just like, oh, thank you, even if it is automated. So, okay, hooray. All right, well, we are wrapping it up. So thank you for playing along. Thank you for giving up some time, whether you're watching live or watching the replay. I appreciate all of you for being here and for watching, and appreciate educators for just being there for our students. So thank you. And thank you, Desiree, again, for allowing me this opportunity. I see Gail says, you know, she have been introduced to this in the past, but a good refresher. And that is truly one of these tools that it's like, oh my gosh, I almost need a refresher every time I get into it again, until I've been using it for a while. So I'm glad we'll have this video to refer back to.
And your document, which is Awesome. So thank you so much, Kathryn. It was the right pace. You started like just everything just gelled. So thank you so much for teaching this to us and giving us that really amazing resource that we can go back to, not just the video, but the actual document. So if someone did not fill out that form, if they click on the link and they're like, oh, this is a form, this is not a resource, you need to fill that out to get the resource. I cannot suggest that enough. The resource is awesome. So Kathryn, thank you for coming, spending your time today and putting all this work into this session.
Thank you again, Desiree. I appreciate it so much. And this was a lot of fun for Saturday morning learning with y'all.